sitting on the floor of the House of Commons with less than a millisecond to do any vetting, what would you have us do? Open up our phones and do a Google search?
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. We bring you breaking news from today's question period where there was a shocking announcement.
Before we get to that, help us keep this channel growing strong by hitting that like button to help push this out to more viewers. And subscribe to the channel so you're notified of our next episode. If you would like to support the channel, check out the description of this video for more details. Now let's take a look.
Have your attention, order. It's with a heavy heart that I rise to inform members of my resignation as Speaker of the House of Commons. It has been my greatest honor as a parliamentarian to have been elected by you, my peers, to serve as the Speaker of the House of Commons for the 43rd and 44th Parliament. I have acted as your humble servant of this House, carrying out the important responsibilities of this position to the very best of my abilities.
I would like to thank you, my colleagues, for your support and for your collegiality during my term as Speaker.
This House is above any of us. Therefore, I must step down as your Speaker. I reiterate my profound regret for my error in recognizing an individual in the House during the joint address to Parliament of President Zelensky. That public recognition has caused pain to individuals and communities, including the Jewish community in Canada and around the world, in addition to survivors of Nazi atrocities in Poland, among other nations. I accept full responsibility for my actions. My resignation is effective at the end of the sitting day tomorrow, Wednesday, September 27th, to allow preparations for the election of a new Speaker. Until that time, the Deputy Speakers will chair the House proceedings. Thank you. Merci.
And you are out of here!
We know we haven't covered the story yet.
Yeah.
We're planning to get to that on Sunday, where we can speak a little more freely and use certain words to describe the situation that YouTube may not be favorable for us to use.
Yeah, they are being extremely strict with us right now. So we are doing our best to play that game and win the battle. The good news is slowly but surely we're winning. But
that's why we haven't said anything about this whole situation.
Yeah, because of the topic and the sensitivity and the restrictions that we're struggling against. But anyway, my first comment is this. The Speaker of the House is a very important and prestigious position. The person's handpicked by the governing party to take that position. And the fact that Trudeau was not in the House today, it just adds to the disgrace.
And he was in Ottawa today. You can check his itinerary.
He was in Ottawa yesterday and he was in Ottawa today. The fact that Rota resigned and he wasn't present, it adds to this whole debacle. I'm sorry, but it does. And people will say, well, you shouldn't be surprised. It's not a matter of being surprised. It's not. It's a matter of just adding to the shame that Trudeau brings to Canada and Canadians every passing day.
Well, there's a certain level of decorum you're supposed to have when you're not only a politician, but especially a prime minister. And he just doesn't care.
No, he cares about what makes him feel comfortable. And that's it. And that was on full display today. He left his new House leader to pick up the pieces of this. Now, don't get me wrong. I have no sympathy or regard for Karina Gold. Could have been any of them. But someone who was a relative nobody in terms of publicity and who she was, to then make her House leader, and you're throwing her to the wolves, it displays Trudeau's lack of regard for anyone around it. And it's amazing that his MPs are not starting to say, wait a minute, this is becoming a pattern here.
Well, and not only that, but I think it's disgusting the way that Trudeau just kind of hung Karina out to dry, especially because she's pregnant. Stress during pregnancy is so bad. And instead of standing in the House like a man and answering questions and doing his job, he just pawned it off on her, and she must be under an unbelievable amount of stress.
Yeah, and this is, like, think about this. They just had their Liberal retreat, and a lot of hard conversations were allegedly had during that retreat. Right before that retreat, Liberal MPs were calling on Justin to resign, and they tried as best they could to portray this presentation of unity within the party after they came out of that. And now they are walking into the public inquiry, and this just hits them right across the face. This is a huge deal. It's not just a huge deal in Canada. It's less of a huge deal in Canada than it is in the international community.
The international community is disgusted with what happened on Friday.
They are appalled. And the problem is this just adds to all of the debacles and scandals that Trudeau has brought upon himself while he's been traveling in other countries and offending everyone everywhere he goes. So it's something else that he wasn't there. Now, many of you don't get to watch what happens inside of Parliament. You may not have been able to see what happened on Friday that started this whole thing. So we figured we'd want to give you the context. As you know, we always do. We want to give you things as unfiltered as possible. So we give you the facts, we provide our opinions, and we let you make your own decision. So you will hear some words bleeped out. And the words we're bleeping out is the other word for the Germans in World War II. And that's due to our disagreement with YouTube on what we're allowed to say. So just keep that in mind, and we thank you for your patience.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
Should have been Rota's first clue. Does nobody on the Liberal side know history? The Germans didn't fight the Russians until the Russians were with the Allies. Ergo, what was this Ukrainian doing fighting the Russians? That means he wasn't on the side of the Allies, was he?
Well, and for the people who are saying, oh, everybody in that room should have known, honestly, we'll show you what Pierre said about it, and we agree with him 100%, because how are you supposed to know? There's someone being presented to you in this very prestigious setting, the House of Commons, and the person presenting them has assumingly vetted them and said, yes, this is a good person, and I'm presenting them to you and congratulating them and whatever, and you should be clapping for them.
Yeah, here's the thing. So one of the things, a lot of you like procedure, so here's some procedure for you. One of the things that by default happens when a leader of a foreign country comes to speak in Parliament, whether it's Biden or anybody else, what the Prime Minister is accountable to do, whether he's not doing it himself, but he's accountable, buck stops with him. He's accountable for ensuring that every single warm body that is in that chamber has been vetted. Why? Because He's accountable for the security and safety for that foreign leader. Now imagine that foreign leader is engaged in a conflict with another nation, like Ukraine is with Russia. So it becomes even more important. So if you're a member in the opposition, you don't get to actually know any of this stuff beforehand, right? You're not running the show. You're reacting to the show. You're a spectator. But each one of them also knows what's supposed to happen. So the NDP, the Bloc, the Independents, the Green Party, the Conservatives, all of them are by default thinking, oh, they're honoring, they're introducing somebody. They're not even thinking about it because they're just assuming he's been vetted. They're not questioning this. So they're honoring somebody. Okay, fine. Yeah. Well done. World War II veteran. Sounds great. You know, they're assuming fought for Ukraine. And then it turns out to all go south. What, like, they're not the ones that should be apologizing, because they had no hand in that person being there, and they had no foreknowledge of that person being there, and they have to take everybody at their word and assume that this person's been vetted.
Well, it's like these Hollywood scandals that come up from time to time. Like the Weinstein scandal, for example. How many of you have seen Weinstein's movies and were like, oh, I really like this movie. That's a good movie. And then,
do you need to apologize for seeing the movie?
Right. You had no idea what he was doing. How could you know?
Right.
How could you know?
So that's what this is. The people that should be apologizing are the people that actually did the wrong. Okay? Now, the Bloc chose to apologize. Fine. But they shouldn't need to. I don't hold the Conservatives' feet to the fire here.
Or any other party.
I don't hold Jagmeet responsible. I'm not demanding an apology from him.
Well, and I think even most of those liberals, like the backbenchers, they had no idea what was going on.
Yeah. No, nobody but the
knew.
cabinet would have known. And the cabinet is denying that they knew, which, I'm sorry, but it's unbelievable. It is unbelievable that a foreign leader that is engaged in a conflict is speaking in our house and they don't know every single person that's in there. I'm sorry. It doesn't wash. So now we get into Pierre's reaction. Let's see what he had to say.
In addition to the rising costs and rising crime, Canada's reputation is broken. This is, by far, the biggest hit Canada's diplomatic reputation has ever taken in its history. And it happened under Justin Trudeau's watch. He chose to invite President Zelensky to Canada. He chose to have him on the floor of the House of Commons. He was therefore responsible for ensuring that that visit was a success. And all of the agencies that were supposed to protect a foreign head of state in our country, the RCMP, CSIS, Global Affairs Canada, and the Privy Council Office, all report ultimately to one man, that is Justin Trudeau. And who is the one man who is in hiding today? Justin Trudeau, hiding under a rock, unwilling or unable to defend his conduct on the floor of the House of Commons. If he is so blameless, why was he not in Parliament yesterday or today to explain his conduct? He was in Ottawa, but he was in hiding. That is the mark of a man who doesn't take responsibility and is not up to the job of Prime Minister of Canada.
It's interesting because it is so obvious that Rota is Trudeau's fall guy here. Now, Rota, is trying to be the brave soldier and saying, oh, well, nobody knew about this. It was only me.
I don't believe that for a second. No, because, again, you've got the president of a foreign country coming into the House of Commons. You want to know that everybody in that room is going to be safe. You don't want anybody who may potentially do something dangerous. You need to absolutely be sure of who you are inviting into that chamber.
And some of the liberal supporters may say, well, he's a 98-year-old man. What's he going to do? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Every single person in that room needs to be cleared. Period. It's a matter of security. You don't assume when it comes to security. Period. That's the way it works. People may not like it. People may think it's excessive. But that's the way the game works. That's security. In the game of security, you would rather overprotect than underprotect. And that's just how it works. This is just one more example of somebody taking the fall for Justin Trudeau. National Post agrees with us. Article published today. And now that Speaker of the House Anthony Rota has resigned, Trudeau can go on pretending like the whole thing had nothing to do with him. Sure, it was humiliating for Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, who was in the House of Commons clapping along with everybody else for the former blank soldier, an image that aids Russia in its lie that Ukraine is a fascist state. And it was deeply embarrassing to Jewish Canadians and Ukrainian Canadians in particular, and it is causing alarm in global capitals. However, what's most important for Trudeau is that everyone understands that Rota, not the Prime Minister, was to blame.
But another reason that I suspect Trudeau's not as innocent as he's claiming, number one, I don't believe a word the guy says, but aside from that, the soldier that they honored, his granddaughter had tweeted something to the effect of her grandfather was meeting with Zelensky and Trudeau. So it kind of like implied that there was like a private meeting or a private audience with Trudeau. So for somebody to get that close to Trudeau and that close to Zelensky, you would imagine, or you would hope anyways, if our government is doing their jobs, that this person has been thoroughly vetted and examined and they know everything about the person doing the meeting and like their friends, their family, what they ate for dinner last night, like all of it.
Now let's say they didn't, but the only reason Trudeau wouldn't have known is because he would have ignored his security detail, and his security detail would have said, sir, we need to vet everybody who comes in here. No, it's fine. He's 98. Sir, he's going to be right next to you and Zelensky. No, that's fine. That I can see happening.
Well, he allegedly reads every paper that comes across his desk, so...
Well, if he prevents the paper from even arriving on his desk, then he can't read it, can he?
Well, that's it.
So I can see that happening. So again, it comes back to the theme of this. He's either incredibly incompetent or he knew. Just like the foreign interference with China. Same thing.
Well, let's see what else Pierre has to say about this.
Thank you very much.
All of you got up and clapped. Shouldn't all of you have to stand and apologize? Shouldn't you, Mr. Polyev?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Because what we were told is that we had a Ukrainian veteran. There are Ukrainian veterans who fought both and Soviets. There are many proud Ukrainians who are against both fascism and communism and all other forms of socialism. Sitting on the floor of the House of Commons with less than a millisecond to do any vetting, what would you have us do? Open up our phones and do a Google search on this person whose name was suddenly and spontaneously mentioned from the front of the room? Impossible.
There you go.
This is the exact argument that I made to somebody on Reddit yesterday who had said that all the MPs in that chamber were just as guilty as Rota because they were standing there clapping. I said that was the most ridiculous argument that I had ever heard, because what are they supposed to do? A, not clap. That looks really bad that, they've been presented with this war hero that, for all they know is a war hero on the right side, on the Allied side, and they don't clap for him. That would look really bad. I said they can't just whip out their phones and start trying to research the guy.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine, he's like, oh, yeah, we have this guy here. Mr. Speaker, point of order. I would like to Google this person, please.
Right? You would assume, you would make the safe assumption at that the people presenting this individual would have done that work beforehand. But like everything the Liberals do, they did a horrible job.
But you know what would not have been impossible? For the Prime Minister to have one of his top agencies call the Speaker and say, hey, we're having possibly the single biggest target for assassinations anywhere in the world, the President of Ukraine, on the floor of the House of Commons. We'd like to know who's going to be in the room.
Are you suggesting that this man was a risk to Mr. Zelensky's physical safety?
No, but anybody could be a risk.
What a silly question. Like, and this is exactly what I said they would say. Oh, well, he's only 98. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
There's all sorts of things that man could have been carrying in that could have harmed people that he didn't need to physically do. You know what I mean? You guys can use your imaginations.
You can. Hey, how many times have you heard of people having things under their coats, and then all of a sudden the room disappears? You know what I'm saying? So there is many ways for a 98-year-old to inflict harm. So, but again, it doesn't matter. It's insurance. It's to ensure that nothing is going to happen. When these types of visits happen, there is typically a order of operations for the day. Everyone's briefed. Everyone in the government knows what is happening, when it's happening, who is doing what, who's saying what, when Zelensky's coming in, when he's going out, and every single person in between. That's the way it works. That's the way it has to work. Otherwise, people will stop coming to Canada. So, here's the problem. This is a no-win scenario for the Liberals. Trudeau says, well, I didn't know. Okay, well then foreign leaders are going to say, you didn't know? You don't check people? I'm not coming.
This is why the Five Eyes is upset with us.
Right, over and over again. Or if he did know, foreign leaders are going to say, you knew that type of person was going to be in there? I'm not coming. It's a no-win scenario, and that's why foreign leaders everywhere are looking at Canada saying, what the heck is going on over there?
I mean, the best thing and possibly the only thing that they can do is Trudeau needs to get up there and apologize and take responsibility. Again, as the leader, as the prime minister, it is your responsibility. You may not have done it directly, but you are still accountable.
And this next bit just explains the seriousness of this. So Poland is now filed for an extradition order to have that individual extradited to Poland. You may be saying, well, why are they doing that? Because this person was part of a unit that fought a lot of Polish soldiers. And after the war, after World War II, they declared that unit to be accountable to the Polish people. So it seems that they want to actually charge this guy for crimes committed in World War II. The Polish people take this extremely seriously. Now, whether that extradition order is going to be successful is another story. I doubt that they're going to be successful. But here's the problem. The political situation as it is, this might be the bone you have to throw to the dog to get rid of it. So, now I don't necessarily have sympathy for a 98-year-old survivor who fought on the wrong side of war. And by the way, this unit, it was volunteer only.
Yeah, they weren't conscripted. They weren't drafted.
So this person said, hey, I'd like to fight for this unit. I'd like to fight for the Germans. Sign me up. That's why this particular unit is under such scrutiny. We'd love to hear what you have to say, but as we've seen before, and as I'm sure we will continue to see again, when push comes to shove, Trudeau's leadership qualities are no better than a 3-year-old boy hiding from his mom.